Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you guys are new here, then my name is Aldwin and I have my own candle business called Wood Candle Co, where we sell candles and we directly support mental health charities. And on this YouTube channel, we help small beginner candle makers make and sell good candles, not bad candles, along with me sharing my personal tips and tricks on how to grow your candle business and whatnot. So on with the video. That intro was good enough. So I know that the topic of this specific video and in general candle making, it could be a bit scary, daunting, and confusing for some of you guys, especially if you're just starting out or if you're a beginner candle maker. But trust me, once you guys memorize all the formulas, it's just plug in the equation and you're done. So we're gonna go ahead and go through the candle formulas together step by step and make it as easy as possible, as easy as lemon squeezy. Yeah, anyways, candle math is not rocket science and you don't need to be good at math to figure this out. I wasn't good at math in high school. I hated numbers, so if I can do it, then you guys can do it too. There are a lot of candle math videos out there on YouTube and some of them can be confusing. But in this video, we're gonna go step by step on how to do candle math and figure it out one at a time so that you, by the end of this video, you understand it and you have to. Okay, so before I start, there are some formulas you need to know, and once you understand these formulas, then you can basically be a candle math. Formulas all interrelate with one another, so once you understand it, then it's easy from here on out, but we're gonna go ahead and take it one step at a time so you understand everything. So first formula is our total weight, and your total weight is just your wax weight and your fragrance weight combined. Formula for total weight is going to be TW equals water weight times 0.86 or 86%. And you might be wondering where I got the water weight from or 0.86, but don't stress out. I'll go into more detail after I finish introducing all the formulas. That was the first formula. Our second formula is going to be calculating our wax weight, which is how much wax you need in your container or your vessel. And this is going to be W equals our total weight divided by parentheses 1 plus F, which is our fragrance load. So that can be 0.08, 0.09, 0.10, 0.11, but converted to as a decimal. So we'll talk more about that later. So our third formula is going to be calculating fragrance oil and how much fragrance oil we need in our candles. So the calculations for this can go both ways. The first one would be just your fragrance oil times your wax weight, and it gives you the percentage of how much oil you need. And our second formula would be total weight minus our wax weight. So that's how you calculate fragrance. So there we go. 3 easy, simple formulas. And once you guys understand these formulas, and once you guys actually memorize these and put into action, then you guys will be candle masters in no time, and you'll be able to figure out how much wax your container can hold, how much wax you can put in your container, how much fragrance oil you should put in your container, and you'll be all set. All right, so now that we have the formulas, we can go ahead and start making our candles and make this a little bit more practical. Now I'm going to go ahead and set up my own things, my pot, my wax, and heat it up, melt the wax, so I could show you guys visually how everything works, because it can get a little confusing. And when I first started out, I didn't understand how to do this and I didn't know what I was doing, so hopefully this helps. Okay, say we want to make a candle, right? And we have 3 different sizes and we don't know how much liquid volume or candle weight it would take to fill these up until they overflow from the top. And when I'm talking about volume, it's basically how much space can fit inside a jar or a container or a vessel. And for weight, it's just how heavy an object is. Basic, simple. We're gonna go ahead and use something called water method to figure out how much volume is in this jar, and then directly convert that into the required wax weight we need to fill that same space. Just because you have a 9-ounce jar doesn't mean you can fill this jar up with 9 ounces of wax. Containers are manufactured based on liquid volume, and since we're candle makers, we formulate based on weight and not liquid volume, so we need to do some calculations. So we're gonna use water as our main magical conversion tool, and since water is a lot more denser, a lot more heavier than wax, we need to convert it so that we get the proper equivalent. And to do this, we need to understand that wax is about 86% as heavy as water. So why 86%? Why do we use 86%? And where do you get this number from? So basically all the common types of waxes on the market, beeswax, soy wax, joy wax, beeswax, paraffin wax. Did I say paraffin wax? Oh yeah, so all the major waxes on the market, they're all about 82% to 95% as heavy as water, and we just use 86% because it's the relative average, and everyone uses it because they find it to be the most accurate when it comes to calculating their candles. So we're using the relative average, which is 86%. So from now on, 86% is not going to change. It's always going to be 0.86 when we do our calculations. So 86%, just remember that is going to be our relative average for calculating our total weight. Now that we understand the concept, let's go ahead and convert our water into our total weight, which is the weight of our candle wax and fragrance oil weight combined inside the vessel. First off, I'm gonna go ahead and get my digital scale. So you need a kitchen scale for this, or a digital scale, but not a scale that measures volume, because we want to make sure to always weigh in weight. Either in ounces or grams is fine. Okay, so now put your empty vessel on top and tare the scale back to 0. Okay, now we're gonna go ahead and fill up the glass with water to the height we want our wax level to be. Okay, let's fill this up to 90% full. I'll just go a little bit more. Okay, so now that we filled up our water to the level we want our wax to be, this is going to be our water weight, which is around 5.1 ounces. And we also have a good understanding of where 86% came from. And again, it's just the relative average of wax to water. So wax is 86% as heavy as water. So now that we have both of these variables, we can go ahead and calculate our total weight, which is Formula 1. This is going to be total weight, which is, again, total weight is going to be the total weight of our wax weight and our fragrance weight combined inside the jar. So let's do this together. Our total weight equals our water weight times 0.86. So 86%, you just convert that to decimal, which is 86 divided by 100, and you get 0.86. And since you have 0.86 and you have your water weight, you just times it, and let's do the calculation together. I filled the cup up to 5.1 ounces, and so I plug in 5.1 for water weight. Now that we have water weight, we just multiply 5.1 times 0.86, which comes out to be 4.4 rounded, or you could just stick with 4.38 or 4.39. It's just a small difference. It doesn't matter if you round it, unless you want to be super accurate. So our total weight of wax weight and fragrance oil weight is going to be 4.39 or 4.38 or 4.4 if you want to round it. So 4.39 for this case, and that's just going to be how much wax and fragrance oil weight is going to be in the container to fill up that certain level that you poured your water into. Our total weight of combined wax weight and fragrance oil weight is going to be 4.39 or 4.4 if you want to round it. And that 4.4 is the conversion of the water weight that we filled up to earlier. So that 4.4 in wax and fragrance oil is going to be the same and equivalent to the water that you filled up from this glass. So it's going to be the same, filled up at the same level. That's our total weight. Alright, good job. So we figured out our total weight of our candles. Now we just need to figure out how much wax and fragrance oil to put inside the jar. So we're going to be using our formulas 2 and 3 for this last step. So how do we find the exact weight for how much wax and fragrance oil we need to put into our containers? So let's figure out how much wax weight we need. And to do this, we need to do our second formula. And again, formula for number 2 is going to be W equals TW divided by 1 plus F. W being your wax weight, TW being your total weight, and F being your fragrance load. For a fragrance load, it all depends on you. You can use 6%, 7%, 8%, 9%, 10%, 11% fragrance oil, or however the max fragrance load your wax can handle. Different manufacturers have different fragrance loads for each type of wax, and there's a maximum. On average, I would not go higher than 11% unless you have a wax that can go higher than that. For the sake of this video, we're going to be using 9% because 9% is typically what I use for my candles, and 9%, we need to convert that into decimal in order to put it into the equation. In order to convert 9%, we just divide it by 100 and you get 0.09. The same goes for 6%, 7%, 8%, 10%, 11%, divided by 100. So 11% divided by 100, 0.11, 10% divided by 100, 0.10, 8% divided by 100, 0.08, 7% divided by 100, 0.07, 6% divided by 100, 0.06, and on and on and on. You kind of get it. So you need to do conversion in order to plug it in. You can't just plug in 6 into the equation because you'll get a different number. You need to convert it into a decimal. So if you're using 7%, for example, you need to convert that. So 7 divided by 100, 0.07. You're going to plug in 0.07 into the equation. Okay, so let's continue with our formula to find our wax weight. We don't know W, but we do know total weight, and we do know fragrance load. Our fragrance load is going to be 9%, which is 0.09. Let's plug that in, 0.09. And our total weight from earlier, which is 4.39, let's fill that in. And again, our total weight comes from our water weight times 86%, which is the relative average of weight to water. Okay, so now that we have all the variables on this side that we need to solve for a W, let's go ahead and do some calculations. So first off, parentheses goes first because PEMDAS, parentheses, exponents multiplied by 1 plus your fragrance load, so 1 plus 0.09, which is going to be 1.09. Let's go ahead and fill that in. And if you have any questions for number 1, don't worry about it. That's just gonna be the same thing every single time. You don't need to worry about it. You don't need to change it. It's gonna be constant, so it's gonna be the same single equation every time. So 1 plus fragrance load. So you don't need to change it. The only thing you're changing is your fragrance load. If you want to change 6% to 7% to 8%, then you're gonna need to change that. But don't change the 1. Okay, so now that we added these together, let's take our total weight and divide it. So we have 4.39 divided by 1.09. And that's gonna give us our wax weight. 4.39. This is our total weight divided by 1.09. 4.03. I got 4.027, but I rounded it to 4.03 because it doesn't really make a difference since we're dealing with such minuscule numbers. 4.03, that's going to be our wax weight. How much wax weight is required to put into the candle. And again, how we get 4.03, how do we get this number? We get our total weight divided by 1 plus our fragrance load. And the numbers are going to change depending on your fragrance load. So if you use 10% or if you use 6%, you're going to come out with a different number. But for 9%, we got 4.03. So we have our wax weight, we have our total weight, now we need our fragrance oil weight. And this is going to be the easiest step of all, which is step number 3. Now let's figure this out together. So fragrance oil equals F, which is our fragrance load, times W, which is our wax weight, which we got from step 2. So for fragrance oil, earlier we decided on 9%, so let's go ahead and plug in 9% and convert it to a decimal, which is 0.09, times our wax weight, which we got 4.03. So if you forgot or don't know how I got 4.03 from, then go ahead back to step number 2, where I calculate wax weight equals total weight divided by 1 plus fragrance load. And that's how you get wax weight. So basically just taking our wax weight number that we calculated and taking it, dragging it to our third equation. So fragrance load times our wax weight. Let's go ahead and do that calculation. So we got 0.09, which is our fragrance load, times our wax weight, which is 4.03. So this is going to be how much fragrance oil we're going to be using in our can. So we got 0.3627, but we're just going to go ahead and round it. We can do 0.4 or we can do 0.36, but for this sake, I'm just going to go round it to 0.36. Keep it at that. So it turns out fragrance oil is 0.36 ounces. And once again, I told you that there was 2 methods in calculating fragrance oil. And the second method is getting your total weight and subtracting it from wax weight. And since we have our total weight and our wax weight from earlier, so our total weight from step number 1 and our wax weight from step number 2, we just subtract it, and that would give us our fragrance oil. 9 subtract 4.03. What? You get 0.36. That's the same thing. That you get the same calculation. For method 1 of calculating fragrance oil, we got fragrance load times our wax weight, which was 0.36. And our second method turns out to be the same. Total weight subtracted by wax weight equals 0.36 as well. So that's how you, okay, so now that you have all 3, you want to go ahead and check it. So you have your total weight, you have your wax weight, and you have your fragrance oil weight. You want to go ahead and add these 2. So your wax weight and your fragrance oil weight, if you add these two, they should be the same as your total weight, because your total weight is your fragrance oil and your wax weight combined together inside the vessel, inside the container, inside the jar. So for us, it's going to be 4.03, our wax weight, plus 0.36, our fragrance oil weight. And you get 4.39, which is our total weight. So, ta-da! When you calculate this and when you add it up, it's okay if it's not perfect, if it's not the exact same number. Just as long as it's, kind of similar and it's not off by too much, then you're fine, you're good. So let's go ahead and fill this cup up to 4.03, which is our wax weight. And it should be similar to the level of the water cup minus the fragrance oil number. But this is such a small number that it's barely going to make a difference. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go to 4.39. 4.37, close enough. 4.34. Let's go ahead and compare them side by side. So what we did here was we got the water cup from earlier and are now comparing it to the same cup, the same similar cup, but filling up with wax instead. So once we converted the water into total weight and then we converted that into wax weight, filled up the water cup with 4.03 ounces of wax. They're exactly the same, almost really similar. Minus the fragrance oil, which is 0.36, but it doesn't really matter because 0.36 is such a small number. So remember what we did here again was getting a water cup and converting that water into equivalent of wax to give us the same height, the same level that we wanted in our candles. And we got that by multiplying the water times the relative average of wax to water, which is 86%. And they gave us the total weight, and then we converted that again into wax weight, which is 4.03, and then we got our fragrance oil. So yeah, just want to go ahead and check that again. Alright, so the video ends here. Hopefully you guys have learned a thing or two about candle math, and also specifically how much candle wax and fragrance oil your containers can hold before they fill up, in addition to figuring out how much exact wax weight and fragrance oil weight that you need in your candles. Alright, this video is over now. Thank you guys for watching till the end. If this helped you out, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.